Today on 21st Century Business, explore state-of-the-art technology, innovative business strategies, insights from cutting-edge corporations around the globe, a visionary look into the answers of tomorrow, today. Business leaders, business solutions, 21st Century Business.
Welcome to 21st Century Business. I'm Jackie Bales. For payment institutions and electronic money issuers that wish to enter the European market, the task of acquiring the requisite licensing can be daunting. The costs and complexities of the process can result in wasted money, time, and resources. However, boasting a 100% success rate in gaining European authorization for their clients is Neopay, experts in the process. Here to talk about the challenges and their solutions is Craig James, CEO of Neopay. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you for inviting me, Jackie.
Craig, for a company that wants to venture into the European market, what types of problems or pitfalls might they face?
Well, the main problem we see is that US companies don't necessarily understand that there is very much a difference in the way business is conducted within Europe. So one of the problems that we see is around the use of language and certain phrases. There are phrases within the US that are perfectly valid and acceptable that have a different meaning within Europe. So sometimes you see problems with companies putting forward a perfectly valid and successful business model in the US, attempting to translate that into the European market, and simply just by the use of certain phrases or certain words, they put across a business model that wouldn't necessarily be accepted within the European market. So it's very much about ensuring that the model you intend to bring to Europe is actually a European model, not necessarily a US model.
Tell us more about Neopay and the solutions you offer and the industry you service.
Well, Neopay was very much founded to enable companies to begin to offer payment services and electronic money services within the UK and certainly within the wider scope of Europe. Now, our speciality is around helping companies take their business models, whether it's a brand new business model, whether it's an existing business model with many years success behind it, and then simply presenting that model in a way that regulators can understand, that they can see the risks that are posed by the business to not just consumers but also to the market in general, and really understand that the business is a value add to the industry. It's not necessarily a business that is going to create problems for the regulator or create problems for consumers. So we take the businesses through their commercial model and then we help them to demonstrate that commercial model to the regulator and show that the risks associated with the model have been fully covered and that the regulator can be comfortable in allowing that business to then transact within Europe.
And the industries that you serve in particular?
In particular, we look after the electronic money industry, so that's perhaps better known as prepaid cards or prepaid wallets. With the advent of the Payment Services Directive within Europe, that's opened up a new area which is very closely related to electronic money, but it refers to the use of payment service vehicles, so methods by which payments can be made over mobile phones, for instance.
Well, for more on this, let's take a look at this 21st Century Business Field Report.
Many payment institutions and electronic money issuers want to expand into Europe, the largest e-commerce region in the world. However, European Union regulations are complex, and gaining a license can be a long and expensive journey. Neopay are the market leaders in guiding companies through the European licensing process, like Chris Ellis of Yalaman, Chile.
The payments and prepaid space is moving very quickly, particularly here in Europe. Yalaman, Chile fulfills a primary purpose of allowing our clients to move at a very quick space or pace within this market to deliver solutions, products to our clients to meet those evolving requirements in the space. Europe is a fairly complex region. A lot of people entering the market do assume that it's going to be very similar to maybe the US, for instance, where there is more of a sort of monosyllabic culture. That's not intended as an insult. But there is a much more complex environment here, both from a payments perspective and also from a regulatory and compliance perspective.
Costs and complexity mean many organizations waste money and resources when applying for authorization. Typically, they do not have the experience within the region to understand the approach of the regulators, card schemes, and other third parties within the process. That's why companies like WeSwap.com have turned to Neopay.
A lot of the innovation that's going on at the moment in the payment space is about mobile and about internationalising payments, so helping payments be made internationally more efficiently and more cost effectively. And that's going to necessitate a change in the approach of regulators so that they work much more collaboratively and internationally to regulate these businesses. We work with Neopay, who are our compliance consultants, to really focus on the important bits of what we have to ensure that we comply with the regulations, but so that we don't put in place meaningless and valueless box-ticking exercises which tend to dominate a lot of regulatory compliance these days.
Craig, why is expanding into Europe so popular for payments and e-money companies?
Well, this is actually quite interesting. It's popular for companies in general, but it's very popular with North American companies, especially in the US. Now, what many US companies may not understand is that prepaid and electronic money within the US is easily 10 to 15 years more mature than the market in Europe.
Oh, really?
Now, that becomes quite an attractive proposition for a US company that's already built a successful base within the US to then seeking to move beyond those boundaries.
The UK seems to be the most popular location for these organizations to base themselves. Is this a trend that's likely to continue?
It is, absolutely, and it's a very deliberate trend as well that was set about by the regulators.
Oh.
When the directives were written to allow the issuing of electronic money and the provision of payment services across the whole of Europe, the UK regulator decided that it wanted to be the heart of that. London has already established itself as a centre for global financial services.
Absolutely.
And they deem this to be one of the more new and exciting areas. And on that basis, the UK regulator set out to become the best area.
So what general advice would you give to companies that want to be authorized to operate in Europe?
As I've said earlier, the London market, yes, it's a well-trod path. That's not to say that there aren't commercial advantages for a company to go through, say, Ireland or Gibraltar or France or Germany even. But what we would say to companies generally is that if you intend to come to the European market and start operating, you really need to make sure that what you've got is a well thought out business model, something that we can explain with relative ease to a regulator so they can understand the risks that you pose, understand what your business and why they should allow you to operate within Europe.
What do prepaid or electronic payment services need to do to begin operating in this region then?
The first thing really is to look at your business model and then look at what it is you intend to do within Europe. What services, what products even do you intend to offer? Once you've nailed that down and you understand really what it is you want to bring to Europe, then you can start to look at how you need to structure your business, what changes you need to make to your business to ensure that it can operate within Europe.
So, Craig, what would you say are the most important aspects of the development and planning process then for these companies?
The most important thing is to define your business model. The second aspect to this is not necessarily within the design of the business model itself, but it's more getting to understand the European market. It's a fairly tight-knit market. You can spend an awful lot of money engaging with different people and with different companies trying to get the information on the data on the European market. One of the things that we strongly suggest is that you look towards the industry support groups that exist. For instance, I'm a director of the Prepaid International Forum, which is the industry body that represents prepaid money and electronic payments within Europe. The organization has a wealth of knowledge. It has a significant number of players who already exist within that market, and it's a great area to gain experience from other companies, from other operators, and not necessarily in a competitive environment.
Do you have any other closing advice for organizations looking to expand into Europe?
I think in closing, it is a very attractive market. The market is relatively young on a global scale, so the scope for expansion is quite high. If you include in that the fact that the state of Europe, if you wish to call it that, but Europe is comprised of a number of countries, and that number of countries increases. So there are always new markets opening up, and one of the most attractive propositions when it comes to Europe is that because of our network and our trade agreements, You only have to obtain authorization in one country.
Oh.
Once you've done that, you're then able to offer your services throughout all the other countries within Europe without having to go through additional cost and time and resource to obtain licenses in all of those states.
Well, thank you, Craig, for your insights and advice and for sharing the solutions that Neopay has to offer the payments industry.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. For 21st Century Business, I'm Jackie Bales.